right, welcome back to West Coast Unplugged tonight, Saturday night. We got a banging show for you guys. We just came off of 250 years of independence, man. And, it's just a late Saturday night. It's me and my son, Cole Daniel. I'm Bo Daniel, and we're back to just kind of give you a brief overview of our podcast and our situation in life. And there's all kinds of shit going on right now in the world, and we can't really keep up with it. So we're just going to give you a brief summary about where we're at West Coast Unplugged, and that would start with, let's just start, Cole, with digesting vacations and being back to work. The holidays are over. We're both back to 6 days a week. I try not to work 6 days a week. I did this week, and Cole is on the grind 6 days a week. How you holding up over there on the West Coast side, Cole?
Shit. So far, so good, Dad. I don't know. I think I think sometimes you get put in these rhythms, and sometimes you're just put in these work doesn't stop. I was talking to you the other day, and I said, shit, Dad, sometimes I'm like, it's the middle of the week. I'm like wondering, golly, been working 6 days the past 2 months. All I see is 6 days the next 2 months. I'm like, when's it going to stop? And you're like, it doesn't, So I think over time, I've kind of gotten used to just having one day off and getting back to it at work, and just being focused on going to work really. And there's not really much else outside of that, but trying to find time in between. So I think right now I'm doing pretty good. A couple weeks ago, I probably wasn't doing as good. I think you just kind of keep rolling and go with the punches with things. Sometimes I have good weeks, sometimes I have bad weeks. I've noticed when you're working so much though, it's good days and bad days versus good weeks and bad weeks,
That's true. It sure seems like the days are going by really fast. I think they're starting to slow down. That biological clock that's built in when when you're up at 5 every morning or 4:30, whatever time you got to get up. I'm noticing, it's a little bit lighter out, or it's starting to get darker out sooner, or stay in the morning. And, it's a vicious grind. You guys got to be aware of burnout. If you guys are out there in the blue collar industry, whatever you might be doing, trucking or, heavy equipment, concrete, anything like that, man, when the sun's out, you got to get after it. That's just the nature of the beast. Most people slow down in the winter. Most people slow down in the holidays, but that burnout is no joke. It's happened to me twice, and I've pushed too hard, and I started to get frustrated, and I could be a fucking asshole to work with, and I don't want to be. I want to be a thoughtful person that takes her time, but I ain't got time for it no more. I'm 25 years into this shit, and I ain't got time for the small talk and the horse shit. Let's get after it and get out of here. That's first and foremost on my mind. So, with that, I really I can't tell you enough, son, on how to be aware of these traps that we fall in, because they're tough. It's like sometimes you spend too much money and you get in a financial jam, right? And it takes you a couple of months to dig yourself out, right? And you're working towards digging yourself out, so you're constantly focused on work to make the money to dig yourself out, right? And then boom comes the burnout, and the burnout, it can bring on depression. It can, make you an asshole to live with, your significant other, and like, oh, what's wrong with this guy? Oh, you come home, all you do is bitch about your job, your boss, your coworkers, whatever. And, we do this on Saturday night as a father and son team just to ground down and check in with each other. We used to do it when Cole was young and promoting his music. And, Cole came at me with this, hey, let's try and do this podcast again. So I was all for it. I enjoyed doing it when he was young. And, we're 3 Saturdays in, staying consistent, putting it out there. We want to reach our fan base and, build it back up. We had a pretty good little following there. And, we're happy that people would take the time to listen to us, because I probably wouldn't. I got a short attention span,
Yeah, and one thing I want to touch on with the Saturdays is, you end up sacrificing so much, your health, your well-being, right, your relationships, right, family events. You're so tired from working, you end up not going to this event, or you end up going to the event and maybe you end up drinking too much, and then you got to be right back at work Monday, and then that week ends up dragging ass, and you're so tired from that week, then you end up getting to a Saturday and all you want to do is have another beer, So it's just, I think what I've noticed is there's so many layers to just grinding it out, and then you kind of get back on top. But the main focus is constantly showing up 6 days a week, and it can be taxing. But
it's a hamster wheel you can't get off of, and you add alcohol to Friday and Saturday, Sunday you're wiped out. Monday you're dragging ass. Sometimes football season. How many times we leave a Raider game just completely gone, and here I am calling in on Monday because I can't get out of bed. It's just it's too much. But I just like to put that out there for the guys out there struggling, getting by, working hard. It's not easy, and so for the people that are just now joining on the West Coast platform, let us know what you do for a living. We'd like to talk about your industry or your career, and maybe do some research on it. I said I was going to get into drones this week. I shit the bed on that 100%. There's just too much of this surveillance going on in this. Excuse me, the state of the world right now is just it's just insane.
I told you, Dad. I seen 3 flock cameras today in Tracy.
Yeah.
I seen 3 of them. I was like, no shit, here they are. And they got them hung up to a point where it's like, it's too high to really cut them down. I was like, oh, they got it set up, dude. It was trippy. I was like, no way. I was like,
so
I never would have looked for them before, dude. I never even seen them.
Yeah, they look like a solar panel. And they got this kid on X. He's posting this saying, please do not buy this cordless Sawzall with a diamond tip blade because we wouldn't want nobody to cut. I mean, he's saying don't do this, don't do that. I mean, this kid goes on and on about what not to buy so you don't get caught. It's tongue in cheek. It was hella funny. And there's guys out there putting black bags over them. I guess that doesn't really do much, but I did see in Auburn that a couple of kids down there, what do they call them, the last of the Patriots or some shit, they cut these fuckers off in Auburn and they threw them in the creek, and they found him, and the cop was on there. He was all upset, and he said, oh, these are damaged for good, they'll never work again, this and that. And it's just like, hey, guy got a lot of comments and a lot of likes for doing it, and the kind of reverse effect, the more these guys come on there and complain about it, I think the more these younger kids will be more inclined to cut them down, and it's just like, holy shit, and then here you have it, Cole. They're gonna end up making this like a class 2 felony or something. It could be a 10-year. If they really want it, all they got to do is slap some big law down. It's state law. So
my thing is, Dad, is like I didn't get a notification. I didn't get a petition at my door. I didn't hear nothing. It's like. No. I can see why people are upset about this. Because, like, hey, all of a sudden there's just cameras going up everywhere. Hey, what are these cameras? That's my thing. Like, hey, I didn't get any, I didn't get no intel or have any say on fucking, hey, we're going to put these in your town. It's like, it's pretty creepy. It's pretty trippy.
And they said these, the PG&E, these smart meters, they started swapping them out and they weren't telling nobody, right? They swapped mine out. And, they said there was something to do with that. There was some kind of, underground bullshit going on with those, and they said they were bad. I didn't, that's just what I heard. And, but obviously I'm not a criminal, and I don't, feel like, oh shit, they're invading me or something like that. It's just like having an Alexa in your house. They say it listens, it collects your data, it does this, it does that. For the most part, what computer or TV doesn't today? Your Bluetooth, everything, your car could be shut off on you.
It's more so the idea of it, it's like, hey, what the fuck, shit.
It's intrusive, when you really start to think about it. But getting back to working 6 days a week, who's got time to look at this shit? Who's got time to investigate? Who's got time to go to city council and fight it? You know what I mean? We can't hardly make dinner because we're too tired. And then, that's another thing that comes with that heavy workload, Cole, is you start eating shitty, you start drinking too much, you start door dashing, and it's unhealthy. To eat healthy, get to the gym, and keep the schedule that you and I have is next to impossible. Or to stay married or have a girlfriend. You know what I mean? It's a lot to juggle. And then you got to cram some kind of social events in there in between somehow, some way.
It's totally doable. I don't think it's ideal. I think you learn over the years. You learn how to do it. I mean, shoot, I called you this morning. You were at work, and it made me feel good. You're out there working on a Saturday because I'm like, cool. I'm out here working on a Saturday, and you're still doing it. You're like, cool.
Yeah,
you weren't even tripping on it. It just kind of becomes second nature and just becomes a part of your life almost, And I'm sure you probably didn't have to go in today, but you're like, hey, let me make some extra money. And that is the pro of it. The blessing of it is, hey, I'm making extra money. I have a job where I can pick up a Saturday. Some people don't even have the option to pick up extra overtime hours, So that is a blessing, and that's how you get ahead in life,
And Uber and trying to make ends meet. That's a good point, Cole. Always be grateful for what you got, You're out there working, you're able to work 6 days a week. You start with that attitude and it's going to take you a lot farther. You know what I mean? I have the opportunity to work, and unfortunately sometimes that can grow heavy on you after a while, when you do it too long. It starts to take a toll on your body. You age, quicker than you should, and you lose your fucking hair and everything else. So it's just like it comes part of it. But
when I got some buddies, and I'm sure you've had buddies, and just people, someone's got 40 hours a week, Saturday and Sunday off. Hey, I'm chilling. I'm out here doing this. I'm out here doing that. And then you're stuck in the cab working. And you're like, man, I wish I had a Saturday it gets to the point where it's like, yeah, I'm making money. I'm cool. I like the money. I'm happy to do the work and get the money, but also I want to also do, work on some West Coast on a Saturday and then go Sunday, spend the day with my girlfriend. There's other things I want to do in my life, and it's hard for being young because there's so much you want to do in life, and you got to go to work and make the fucking bills and pay the bills and get ahead, and you get stuck in this financial thing of thinking about the future and thinking about, okay, well, I'm young, I want to buy a house. Okay, well, I got to buy a house. I got to work as much as possible to save up as much money, and I can't spend money on this. And then you end up working so much, you end up spending the money because you ain't got time to spend it during the week. And I think it comes down to also just taking care of your mental health and yourself. If you're able to do that, it makes it easier, but it's harder by doing it. It's just trying to be better at all times.
Takes a lot of discipline, man. You got to be disciplined to balance that fine line, because you can fall left or right, and it's I've always said it, if everything's great at work, everything's shit at home. It's either stacking up, or you got a fence down, you got an AC repair, you got some kind of upgrade going on, you got a car issue, you got to get tires on it, you got to get it small. It's never ending, the list of shit we got to do just to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You add 6 days a week, 9 to 10 hours a day. It's like, okay, you better have a good solid right hand man to help you out with this shit, or you're stuck trying to navigate all this bullshit on your own, which certain times I have to do it because mom's got a demanding career. And, so it's a fine line. But when everything's, great at work, everything's at shit at home. If everything's great at home, everything's shit at work. It's a never ending battle that I have had. But, I don't think it's too much different for anybody else that works, these hours and, what they do for a living. Most people, I'm not sure if I know too many people that just work 40 hours a week. Do you?
Honestly, I don't. My girlfriend's a teacher at the school, and I think she works 50 hours a week, but she only gets paid for 40, And then you also got to factor in commute times and stuff like that too. A 12-hour day at work could be a 14-hour day with commute. And
you see those people driving from Tracy to Fremont? I mean, it's just like you can add 3 hours to your day just in the car.
Yeah, And there are jobs that are 40 hours and get paid $150,000 a year.
Right,
but you got to have a degree and stuff. So there's also things like that.
And with that, there's usually a heavy commute. Those high-paying jobs, man. You got to get out to Silicon Valley and out to the city and stuff like that. That's no joke. You're either catching a BART train or you're,
you might be working 40 hours, but you're spending 55 hours getting to and from work included.
That's right.
I also wanted to say too, that also like the pressure of the knowledge that's at our fingertips with our cell phones. And knowing what's going on all around the world and what your next door neighbor's doing, what the person across the next town's doing, what the president's doing in the United States, all at your fingertips. I think that also adds a lot of mental pressure where it's not just go to work, come home, take the kids to practice and do your thing. Now it's like, oh, the president just said this on Twitter, or on X. And now it's this, there's all this extra data and knowledge where it seems like that adds to the workload almost, So you got to learn how to kind of
design. Yeah. They said they've done tests with that shit. And, I think I read that they said they took like, I don't know what it was, 20 fucking people or something, and they got them on a social media thing, and they started feeding cancer patients, maybe a lost child, and they were seeing if it could sway their, their mood emotionally through, posting this type of stuff. And it's like, they said it did. They said it absolutely. I think it was more than 20. I think it was like 20,000 people they took, and they did an experiment, and they didn't tell nobody. They didn't tell nobody this shit. And you got these creepy people in this laboratory, uploading this shit, and these people are all bummed out. I mean, it's sad. You see that shit. You see, I'm kind of gullible on X because I see stuff like that. I'm like, oh man, that's. And they say people do that shit on purpose just for whatever clicks or likes or whatever they call it.
It's nonstop. It's every day. There's something new. There's something new. There's so much every day.
It's doom scrolling, they call it. I love doom scrolling. The end of the world's coming. Dude, you could click on that thing right now. Alex Jones is talking about, a nuclear bomb landing somewhere. And, tomorrow it'll be, organ harvesting in fucking Texas, and it's just like, whoa, organ harvesting.
And you're going to work 6 days a week, and you're like, fuck, what the hell,
So check it out. This guy at work tells me today, and I grok this, and it's true. He tells me Israel has the biggest human skin stockpile in the world. And I said, what? This guy, you got to verify anything that comes out of this guy's mouth. He's so full of shit, right? And so I said, I'm grokking that shit, dude. I said, that's bullshit, He goes, no, look it up. He said, China, he said, I think he said China was number 2 or number 1. And I'm like, what? So I didn't read the whole thing, but it came up. It said, yes, it was. It did. And they said it was.
So what, like
from,
skin, like dead bodies? Are these like live bodies? Like someone did a surgery and they took some extra skin and saved it?
They harvest it, or they keep it in some kind of cold center or whatever they do. And they said it's for people that have been to war for skin grafts. And I'm thinking, who would want somebody else's skin grafted onto them? That seems, not that, I don't think their DNA is going to, grow into you, right? I mean, but
it could. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it sounds like there's some fuckery going on there for sure. But Grok said 100%, dude. And I was like, dude, this guy's full of shit on everything he says. I got.
So do you know anything about, there's this dude that was on Rogan and he was talking about Palestine. And I don't know. I was hearing about it, and it was like the gay people for Palestine, but I guess in Palestine, like they like being gay is like not a fuck. It's not allowed whatsoever. And so like there's this big push for like gay people for Palestine, and it was a big joke because like in Palestine you're not even allowed to be gay. Do you know? No, do you know about that or no? I got to get more data on this to bring this to the table. But
there's no data to be had. They're Muslim and they don't go for that shit over there in the Middle East. They'll throw you right off a fucking building.
And so it's like here in the United States, you get a bunch of these people that are like fucking Palestine, and it's like over there they're like you're getting fucking dishonored and getting stoned and rocks thrown at you if you're gay over there, and it's just like that's the huge disconnect going on.
Yeah, but then they pump that shit on the media so much that it's just a lot of it's to get a reaction and divide. It's all bullshit. They do, but they said in Afghanistan during the war they would have to go through these checkpoints, and these soldiers were like, hey, what the fuck's with this dude, And they said these guards would have these young boys with them, and it was a sexual relationship they had with young boys, adult men, and they said it's super common over there. It's like absurdly common to where they noticed it all the time, and that was something I didn't know nothing about. And I thought, wow, that's a strange culture, when you're stoning out out gay people or whatever, and then they have these sexual young men, or they're boys, they said. And I'll have to look that up on Grok and bring it back and give you the facts on it. But it was a guy on Sean Ryan, and I think it was a soldier that had been over there to war, and he was talking about it, and he said it blew his mind. And he said, 9 times out of 10, if they got a chance, they would take these guys out, just because they were grossed out by it because of our American culture,
Right.
And, so, you get in these different parts of the world, and the media is going to tell you one thing, and these people are always doing the exact opposite. So it might, whatever it could be, it's the media is never honest about anything. And if it is a horrific thing, they're not.
Well,
they're
and
not
this guy was
on it.
this guy was on Rogan. I don't know his name. I should look it up right now. But I don't want to lose flow here. But he was saying something about there's this this Muslim. It wasn't a sex ring, but it was like the amount of abuse sexually against women out there is like extremely through the roofs. Where it's
I seen that, Cole. That was Rogan.
Did you see that?
That was a guy from the UK, and it was 250,000 victims for the gang rapes. And he said they weren't reporting on it so much that he got funding and he wrote a book about it.
And then it seemed like from my point of view, it was like on this side, we're like, hey, we need to support these people at least.
Right.
And then at the same time as there's these huge crimes going on over there that is allowed almost in a sense. And it just seemed like super extreme. And this one dude did an analysis on it. He's like, out of 100 women, 10% are reporting it, and only 1% is actually getting something done about it. So there's like all this mass crime going on over there.
It's definitely true. They've been, reporting on it. Like if you go, on these underground news channels with, it's either Tucker, maybe Rogan, Sean Ryan, some of these patriots that still stand up and hear this shit, they verify it, and they report on it. You don't see nothing in the news. You see nothing in the news. I mean, I don't care if it's CNN, if it's Fox, it's nothing about this stuff. They're arresting people. I think they arrested, what do you say, 20,000 people?
That guy said
retweets.
The guy said an immigration in the UK is like up to like 1 million. I don't know. Some Middle East countries have came into UK at like an alarming amount. Where at this point, the culture's invading on the culture of the country. Which hey, I'm not a racist. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just relaying the information I'm hearing, but it's like you have the culture of this country.
They make everybody scared to report on it because they'll be called anti-Semitic or racist. This is the game. You are the bad guy for even saying anything about a foreign country, and question it. You can't question it.
Well, in the Middle East, it seems like at least in some of these cultures, I'm not. Just a disclaimer to anyone out there, I'm not an expert on this. Like I'm saying, I'm just reporting what I'm hearing, and maybe you guys could help us out in the comments section. But from what I'm hearing is, the culture of the, let's say, people of the Middle East, I think I want to say it's Muslim, but it's like, the women have to wear clothes over their head, and I guess crime, they don't do that to their people, but it's like someone that's not of that culture, it's allowed in a sense to have to abuse or something like that. But they have a certain culture over there, and it's invading on other cultures of other parts. And what that country was built off of is now being invaded by another culture where they're coming to the other countries, and it's invading on the culture as is, and it's causing a lot of issues within other countries. I guess, I don't know if you could parlay into that, Dad. That's kind of what I was hearing from this guy that was on Rogan.
Yeah, no, that guy was kind of hard to follow because he's got that heavy English accent, and it's like, it's kind of hard to, muddle through that shit. But there's been plenty of reports on these people are refugees that have fled their country because they're war torn. It's Syria, Lebanon, Beirut, all those over there, Afghanistan, a lot of India. India was, apparently at war with Afghanistan for a little bit, but it stopped. But these people have been uprooted from their country, and they've got no place to go. So what they do is they just swarm, and they come into the country. But they, there's a big difference when if you're a refugee, seeking asylum, because if you were to go back home, you would be killed. So a lot of these countries like this one, if people come here seeking asylum from a war-torn country, you have to give them, shelter and an opportunity to grow, but they or to accept them, and if they get, if you get them through the process piece of it, then they ship them to somewhere else, or they give them a chance to, get a citizenship, or they slip under the cracks and they just live underground, for cash and stuff like that. That's not so much the UK, that's more here. But here, what they don't do is when they go to these foreign countries is they don't assimilate to that country. That country was built on their values, right? Whether it's Christian, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Jewish, whatever, there's usually a predominantly, based religion in a country. This one is free. But when you get too many of one group and they don't assimilate, they begin to start their own culture here, and they don't assimilate. There's enough of them to where they can communicate to each other. And, everybody wants to give them a shot. It's the American dream. That's why you say the American dream's slipping away, is because you see this throughout. It's open borders and it's mass hysteria. A lot of these people are criminals, they show these people from, I think it's Somalia in the UK, and they're brutal, they're brutal people. They came from a brutal place. These guys were boarding ships and taking them hostage and, shooting the people. They don't report too much on it because it's such a problem. But in the UK, they started this censorship thing, like on X and Facebook. And even if you retweeted something that was offensive, they were coming to your house and arresting you, And this is the censorship. It's happening in Canada as well. And it's starting to close in. It's starting to, they're starting to,
Yes.
get people set here, divided, and people are saying outlandish shit. It could be hurtful, but it is freedom of speech. You got to be careful with that freedom of speech. You say offensive shit, okay, people can not like it or not listen or do their own thing. If that's how somebody feels, that's how they feel. But at the same time, is if you're calling for mass, shootings of a certain, culture, that shit's they got to take that serious, this day and age with so many, violent shooters and killers. But they said that shit's rampant in France. They said France has been overran by outside cultures, from war-torn countries. They said, we'll take them in, we'll take them. Well, now it's a fucking crime wave. It's a mess over there, and they don't assimilate to the people of France's values, whatever those may be, and they're complaining about it. That's what happened in the UK, and that dude was so tired of hearing about it, he got sponsors to write that book, and so he goes into that book and he talks about it. So it's something to be aware of, and that's that doom scrolling shit. You on X, you don't know if these people are fake or, these paid influencers, they pay them to promote this shit, and it's kind of a horrible thing.
Well, it sucks too, because, you get someone from a war-torn country, like you're saying, and they just want to come over here and make an honest living like the rest of us. And it's like,
right.
There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Hey, I support that. I work with guys, and, these guys come from this place or that place. And, some of the coolest people I've met have been immigrants. And the country is founded on immigrants and stuff, and it sucks because you have the honest side of an honest worker, and then you also have the crime side of criminals as well. So you get both sides, and some sides get blown out, out of proportion, and some sides don't get enough recognition, and some sides get total recognition and they don't support the other side. So it's like you get both, and it's like, I think everyone can agree that, hey, this person, no one should live like how these people are living in some of these countries, and they come here and it's like, I think on the mainstream media, whether it's Fox or it's CNN or whatever it is, the Democratic and the Republican side, sometimes they blow it out of proportion. Like, hey, it's all crime,
right.
and then, or hey, it's all peace, love, and positivity. And it's like, well, no, it's kind of this, and it's also kind of this too, and it's like, where do some of these people fall? They're just normal people at the end of the day trying to make a living for their family, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also a lot of issues that come with that as well. And I think that's just what we're living in real time, and I think everyone's trying to navigate it.
From letting too many people in and letting these things happen, that it causes a deficit that we already can't handle. We have to pay for social services for a lot of these people, and okay, if you're going to get started and get going, great. There's a program, and the program's broken. The government's broken. 100%. And, they're coming in, they're finding all this mass amounts of fraud. And, it's disturbing that none of these people are being held accountable for this stuff. Whether, these Republicans are just as guilty as these Democrats. They're talking about starting a third party, and it sounds really good to a lot of working class people because, these people want to, on the left, do this outlandish stuff. And these people on the right just want to keep starting wars. I mean, it's just like something's got to give, man. The people don't want this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're fed up. And they're talking about the working class party, in between, or a uniparty or something like that. And people are really getting behind it because they're really sick of this bullshit. No one's doing nothing. Hell, they got a congressman that hasn't stuck his head out of the house in, a month. They're saying this dude's dead as shit,
Yeah. And, well, that leads me to, Dad, I wanted you to touch on for the people out there of you grew up in I got you, Dad. I got my experiences. I can learn from your experiences, and you've learned from my grandfather's experiences. So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, hey, what was it like being a young man, maybe even a young kid, maybe 15 years old, seeing what the working man was back when you were a kid, seeing how your dad made a living versus to then maybe transition into how you made a living and then into the future, maybe just cover the broad generations of what was it like back in the day, maybe back in the 70s when working was a lot of construction going on, and then coming up in your own world, and then maybe even I can transition into what I see now in my generation working. If you're able to cover the generations, even a generation above you, to kind of give an idea of the average listener that's just, let's say you're an 18-year-old kid, just got out of high school, looking to get into work. What was working like back in the day, and maybe something along those lines, because I think at least my idea of it is, back when my grandfather and my grandparents were working, it was a whole different thing than what it is now, and what that used to mean and what that used to be.
Yeah, Cole, that's a lot of tough questions at once because, your grandfather isn't the greatest example because he was extremely intense. He was a perfectionist, and, there was not a lot of, there was no gray. It was black and it was white, and that's just the way it was, and that's how it was for a lot of guys back then. It was zero bullshit. It was, but you got to put yourself back in the times. There was not computers. There was not cell phones. There was not nothing. You bought one car. You bought two family cars, and you kept them for 50 years, and they ran for 50 years. It wasn't like. People change cars now like shoes, you know what I mean? They're getting a new one every, 3 or 4 years, or, every 5 years, or whatever it is, or they're, they're putting 300,000 miles on them. And they got to get rid of them because they drove them to death. There wasn't commuting, people didn't commute, if they did, it was, from Livermore to Fremont, you know what I mean? That was a big commute, and now that ain't shit. Yeah.
Let me interrupt real quick, Dad. Just for example, like I was saying, I talked to Ho-Ho, that's my grandfather for the viewers. I thought 680 was always a thing. I grew up with 680. That's how much of a disconnect there is between two generations. I thought 680 was always, and for the people that maybe are out of the States, 680 is a big highway out here that is clogged up in traffic every day now. I thought that was always a thing. My grandfather grew up and they were building 680 when they bought their house. 680 wasn't even a thing. And I'm like, whoa, right. I thought 680 was always here, And that's a big disconnect for me, That's how much stuff changes within two generations,
Right. Your uncle went to the doctor, and the doctor asked him, he said, hey, how's your blood pressure doing? He goes, same as always. And he goes, oh, what's that? And he goes, 580 over 680. You ever been through that fucking interchange? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your blood's pumping, dude. I mean, it is.
I'm like, dude, 680 wasn't a thing. I'm like, no shit. I'm like, golly, like, yeah. That's just always been a thing when I've been alive, And it's like that wasn't even a thing. That's how slow paced it was. You could go to work and there wasn't many people. I mean, there was people on the road.
People, and it's it's just like anywhere else. If you drive out past Tracy, in the undeveloped areas, I mean, it's like look at Carnegie. When we were kids going out there, when you were a kid going out there with your shit, they got houses right up to the fucking park now.
And it's like, it's insane. It's crazy how fast that happens, you know? But at least for me, like, it seems like I think about the older generation. I just think, yeah, like you said, 2 cars, you know, you went to school, your kids went to school, you went to work, the dad went to work. Like we kind of touched on in other episodes, you know, the dad had one professional income, the wife fucking maybe helped out at the school, was a cafeteria lady or something, you know, and then you did that. And now it's like 2 professional incomes can't even support a house of 4, you know? And
right. Yeah. So times have definitely changed, but you're talking over, you know, 60, 70 years. So, you know, things change. Look at how much technologies came.
But there was a lot of core values and a lot of morals and core values that this country was built
People
on.
had a moral compass. You know, you didn't have OnlyFans. You didn't have YouPorn. You didn't have all this shit. You know, these young girls, it's hard to go on X because it's like these girls are so cute, you know, and they're, you know, just offering to show everything and do all it. And it's just like, what are you doing? Stop. I commented on this one, and I usually say, knock it off, or I'm calling your father on the comments, right? And I get a lot of likes over that shit because it's like, usually there's a million, you know, I call it Creepville because there's a million perverts commenting, you know? And I told this girl, you know, she said, you know, post hello and I'll show you everything or something. And I said, don't do it. Someday you might get married and be a mother. And I must have got 45 likes in like a half an hour, right? It was hella funny, but it's just like, God, it's so true.
Yeah.
You know, you're living in the moment, you know, you're putting your whole body out there on a digital platform that's just going to be, you know, I mean, hey, let's, you know.
drive by a flock camera and fucking Livermore PD could see it.
In another 5 years, you might be hitched up with a kid at the PTA meeting. You know what I mean? They start digging around your past. It could be ugly, you know. Yeah. And you see that shit all. You see that shit all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like you gotta slow down, you know. But that moral compass you're talking about, it don't exist today. It's just.
It does. It does still exist today, but it's far and few between.
Well, I think people, you know,
there's guys like me and you, Dad, that have the moral compass, right? That grew up and had a dad that went to work, and you know, you experienced that, so you keep the same values, you know. But it just seems like it's dwindling away, you know, in the wind with technology and AI and all of that. It's all about money and buying the car and keeping up with the Joneses and stuff. It seems like it's not as common as it used to be. Where back in the day, it was just that's all it was.
Well, this goes back to this country was founded on Christian values. You know, we're a Christian nation, you know, one nation under God, right? And, you know, you invite so many different cultures into this United States and you find that their values aren't that. They could be, you know, Muslim, they could be, you know, whatever religion they brought with them, and that's okay. You have that right to the freedom of religion, like freedom of speech, right? But, you know, don't change our values because you have your values. You know what I mean? It's assimilation. You know, you have to be a guest here and you have to honor. When I went to Canada, you know, I told your mother, I said, hey, you know, I don't want no issues here. We're visiting in this country with our dog. We're on vacation. I want to be an ideal tourist. And, you know, I don't want to start honking the horn and flipping people off or, you know, bashing on this country, you know, because in the United States, we hear a lot of bad shit about Canada. You know, the truck convoy, they shut down and they seized everybody's bank accounts. And that was some bullshit, man. I mean, that government's got a clamp on those dudes. And, you know, it's sad, but that's politics. That's all aside. I'm here on vacation and I don't, you know, I want to talk to people and be friendly, right? Well, come to find out, the people aren't really friendly there. You know, I told you before on the last podcast, you know, the people in Canada weren't very friendly. You know, when I got in the eastern side, it was a little bit nicer and the people were a little bit more approachable. But, you know, I don't really, you know, it was really strange to me. But,
so let me ask you this, Dad. If you were 18 years old and just graduated high school, dude, what route would you choose, even back when you were 18? Not like in today's time, but, you know, if you could go back and choose a career path or a workforce, you know, what would you maybe do different, or what advice could you give to a young man, you know, to maybe find a way?
Well, that's a tough one because at that age, you don't know what the fuck you want to do the rest of your life. You really don't. I think that's the hardest thing is they don't teach enough in school about they don't focus on your talents. You know, you might not know that you're good at something, unless you got someone showing you. It's parenting 101, right? I seen you had an interest in music when you were young. Great. Hey, this kid doesn't want to be a football star. He doesn't want to be a soccer star. He doesn't want to, be on the debate team. He wants to, learn how to mix and master music. And I thought, hey, what a great thing. Let's get into this. I can support this. I'll support anything. It doesn't matter, when you're playing football or you ride a dirt bike or whatever you're doing, it had my attention because that's what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to let kids experiment and find what they're interested in, and it comes and goes. It could be a fad, it could be a short fad. There's a million kids that rode dirt bikes from, 12 to, 16, 17 and never rode again. But they got to experience it, right? And there's some that, couldn't get off one and went pro, So how do you know if you don't open your kid to all opportunities to experiment these things? I mean, you got to be really open-minded. And, as a dad, you might know you could have been a football star or a baseball star, and we're like, great, let's get out there and let me coach the team for you. There's a million dads out there that were almost or went to college for baseball or football or something, and it's their life dream to get their kid into it. And some of that shit, that's a tricky thing because sometimes those dads are pushing their kids too hard into something they don't want to do. You see that all day long.
Yeah.
And the kid sucks, like your coach with that shitty kid. That kid sucked. I mean, he was fucking horrible. And so you get that. And
that kid
it doesn't
suck.
matter.
That kid sucks.
You can use that example in anything, right?
Yeah. It's so relatable because it's just such a common thing too. It's so relatable because you can think of everyone's got that one kid and the dad's the coach, and
I always expected everybody could see it a mile away, but most people can't.
Yeah.
They got some wacky wife that's telling them, everything's great and they believe it,
Yeah.
And so, you have to be able to sift through the bullshit, with your eyes and ears. And
that kid's dad was the coach, and he was, I think he was on steroids or something. I don't know. I mean, he maybe he was just on medication, whatever the fuck he was on. He was a high-strung dude, and I had a buddy, and he was an assistant coach, but the head coach coached my other buddy. My other buddy was a big fat guy. He was an offensive lineman, and he coached them. The head coach coached him in little league, and then we got to high school, and he was our freshman football coach, and he was only on the team because the head coach was his coach back in little league, and
right.
The assistant coach came in and he was all pissed off. He's like, "What the fuck are we doing? Fucking, you guys are fucking this up and fucking loud." He started freaking out on everyone, and the kid started laughing. He said, "Fucking." Kid started laughing at the dude, and he was like, "Rubio, you fucking only on the team because Coach Watson fucking likes you. That's it." And he fucking throws the chair up and hits the ceiling, puts a hole in the ceiling. Everyone's like, "Yo, what the fuck, dude?"
God.
That would have slid if his kid was good, but his kid sucked. So it was like fucking everything.
See, that was common. That was mild compared to that I had buddies that played, and these coaches were off the hook just like that all day long. And my dad's advice, it was funny. I was just talking to my parents about this here not too long ago, and they were bitching about Zane when he played baseball. He'd go sit down, he wouldn't get up, and my dad was pissed, and he said he goes, "I was so fucking goddamn mad at that kid. I had to go stand by the tree. I couldn't look at him." And so then it came my turn, right?
Sports.
I was number four, and I asked him one time. I said, maybe I'll go sign up for baseball. And my dad turned around he goes, "Hey, you want some fucking asshole to scream at you all day? Go sign up. Ride your bike." I thought to myself, I guess you're already doing that. I don't need two of these people in my life. I'm good on that shit. So I scratch baseball.
I'm cool.
Yeah,
you're already yelling at me enough, dude. Last thing I need is another grown man yelling at me, diminishing my fucking confidence.
Mm-hmm. But getting back to what we were saying, Cole, is I think the biggest struggle for a kid, at least for me in my experience, was that you got to be interested in something and you got to be good at something. It's just, it goes hand in hand. And what that is, how the hell would you know at that age? I mean, in my dad's era, shit, they were shipping kids out at 17 years old to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And talk about stunting your growth. Right out the gate. These guys were fighting a made up war. It was just horrible. The shit those guys had to go through. It's just so sad. You see these guys on Sean Ryan that were over there, and they tell you what they had to go through. It's heartbreaking. And to have the American citizens yell, scream, throw shit at you, spit on you when you came back home after being, you're fucking shell shocked and traumatized from, being out in the jungle killing people. And you come back to the place you call home, and everybody's against you because of the propaganda on TV. It just such a shitty black eye history there. It's really sad. A lot of good guys over there, and when they came back, they kind of just quietly went to work and went on with their lives. There wasn't a lot of talk about, I'm sure there was a lot of suicides, and there was a lot of drug abuse from that over there. A lot of those guys were on drugs, and when they came back, because that's the only way they could cope with it, was to not think about it. And, being out of your mind was a good way to keep that at bay, right? So,
and thinking you're doing something good for your country, and it's just like coming back with the repercussions of that. It's like that doesn't get talked about enough in today's times,
No. Yeah, it was
it's all forgotten now.
It's all glossed over, and so when you see, kids in your era, they're soft, they're soft. We came up with hard men, and there was hard times. You got your ass beat. It wasn't uncommon to get your ass kicked in front of, whatever, in front of your friends or whatever. If your dad was coming for you, your shit was done, and it was, definitely an ass whipping, and no one thought twice about it. Everybody thought, well, he fucked up, he's got it coming, this is what happens. There's consequences. They taught you there was consequences, and it was an ass whipping, an attention getter, and then you straighten your shit up, unless you were like Jake. He was fucking retarded. He didn't beat that kid hard enough. That's why I loved him,
But you didn't go to a special class. You were in the class.
He was an anarchist.
You were in the.
He was an anarchist since the third grade.
You were in a class just with everyone else. You might have been fucked up or something, but fucking, it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna put you in a special class and we're gonna give you special treatment. Nope, you're right there with everyone else.
No, there wasn't a lot of that. There wasn't a lot of that. There wasn't a lot of these, handicaps that these kids have these days. It was, it's funny is when I went to see your sister at the school, she had a class come in, and these kids were in 8th grade, and I was sitting in her office, and I watched this class come in, and I was like, okay, here comes the kids, whatever, and I'm looking, and it dawns on me, I'm thinking, there's not one fucking kid in here smiling, laughing, fooling around, nothing. These kids looked like they were on heavy medication, like it looked like a mental institute, and they were all given Cosby pills. It was fucking horrific, man. I'm like, God, how depressing. It's Friday. Nobody's. I go, Cleo, what's these fucking guys? And she goes, COVID, dude. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, they're zombied out, dude. I'm thinking there wasn't a personality within the 30 of them put together. It's like, jeez, there should be some shit being thrown around, or somebody chasing her, getting a phone number. It's like 8th grade, man. That was great. I was running crazy,
Yeah.
And these kids, I felt depressed looking at them. I thought, geez, man, you got your whole life ahead of you,
Well, and that even translates into, two parents working 2 professional careers, having the stress of the outside world put on them, trying to make a living, trying to get the kids to school. Right. It all goes hand in hand, and that's just the times we're living in, and it's crazy.
That Instagram becomes your only friend. You're antisocial, you're isolating. That's just not healthy. I'm not saying that was. I'm sure the kids were probably. Not all of them, but it was, I would say 90% of them, man. It was a glum fucking lot, dude. I'm like, damn, I felt like going out there and putting on a show for them to get them to giggle or something, I'm like, geez.
Well, and I think that was a big thing when I was in high school too, is because there was like social media was a thing too, you know. But a big not thanks to you, but knowing what you came from, Dad, and what Ho came from, and just knowing what it used to be. I think I brought that into my high school, you know, and my and the kids in my generation, they know about it enough where it was like, cool, they could see me doing something and they're like, oh yeah, this is what it used to be, this is what it should be, this is what it was. And I think that kind of went hand in hand, because I'm like, hey, nah, like this is what it used to be, let's do this, you know, let's put the phones down. I would for example, I would have a girl follow me on Instagram the day before class. Maybe it was a Sunday night. She followed me on Instagram. I'd go to school Monday, I'd walk past her in the hallway and she wouldn't look at me, right? Right. And she just followed me on Instagram. So she knows who I am. Right. She wanted to see what I was all about, and she didn't, and there was no conversation. It wasn't a eye glance or a hey, hello. It was just a look down and walk this way. And it was just so confusing. It was so confusing for me, because I'm like, hey, you just followed me on Instagram. I would go out of my way and be like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, I'd say what's up, you know, but, you know, that was back when I was in high school, and now it's just gotten so much worse where it's like, it's all just like, oh, let's just not look at each other, and oh, I'll text you on Instagram though. But fucking, it was just confusing for me when I was in high school, because it was like, I just have interactions with people on social media, and then you go to school and it was just like, wasn't a thing, you know. It was weird time, because back in the day there was no social media. It was like, oh, hey, you know, someone would hear this, someone would hear that. Oh, you talk to the girl would talk to you, you know, whatever it was just different, you know.
I think that was just the beginning of it too. It was. It's like you're at that awkward stage, you know, where, you know, you're nervous to ask a girl out because you're going to get shot down or something like that, you know. You need to get a signal from her before you make a move, you know, things like this. You know, everybody goes through that. And, you know, now these kids are going, you know, completely off the rails with weird shit.
Well, the signal was like, hey, she followed me on Instagram, so she's got to be interested, you know? And then you walk past her and there was no interest, and you're like, well, what the fuck, you know? Like, was this, am I tripping here? Are you tripping here? What's going on? You know, and I would have the courage and to break the ice, you know, and do that. But a lot of kids did it, you know? And and that's a big thing going on in today's times, you know? It's almost like
people don't know. I mean, people just go on dating apps and they move around, and that's how they meet people. They don't meet people at a concert. They don't meet people downtown on a Friday night at a, you know, live music scene or something like that, or, you know, I don't know, a coworker, you know, it just seems like everything.
And there still is that. There still is that, but it's like, hey, let me get your Instagram. You get the chick's Instagram. Okay, how many followers do you have? How many likes do you get on your posts? Oh, wow, this chick's got 1,000 followers. She's happening, you know? Okay, cool. Let me hit her up on Instagram because I got her Instagram. And then it goes from there, you know? And it's like, let me see what you're all about through your social media page. And the social media is just so blown out of all the good times and none of the bad times, you know? And it's just different now, man. It's all social media.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to do that. It's a different generation. You know, this is Gen X versus Gen Z for sure, because it's, you know, again, you know, you guys grew up with this. It's you running through this computer, you know, blindfolded because you grew up with them, you know. I'm technology's passing me by the minute, you know, and if I don't start to take a jab at it and put some effort into it, I'm gonna be like your grandfather. The lady asked him, well, did you check your email? And he goes, I don't have fucking email. I got fucking US mail, you know? And it's just like, hey, dude, calm down, you know? It's just like, you know, this lady's just making a living, you know? I got US mail. You know, he's such a fucking tyrant, you know? And when it comes to that shit, it's funny to me because it rolls off. You know, if you're around this guy, it just rolls off. You just kind of giggle, you know, and you keep going, and you know. But
like, dude, you need a fucking email for everything now. Fuck, your email is your new fucking government ID. What's your email? You know, to sign up for anything? You need a fucking email.
I know that, you know that, but he don't know that, and you know, the gal on the other end of the phone didn't know that, you know. So it's funny because I'm starting to move in his direction to where I'm starting to say that type of shit, and it's just like, oh wait, I better, if I want to do this podcast or if I got to up my game a little bit. And by the way, for the people out there watching, I hope the sound comes in a little bit better. We got some new equipment. Me and Cole put some heavy hours in the new studio. I got a whole new setup, and I'm not really, I'm learning how to navigate, so you have to bear with us. But hopefully the video and audio quality are coming in a lot better. You guys can let us know in the comments, but
and that's how much the times have changed too. Like I was saying, it was like, when you bought your house, you didn't have to pay online for your house. You didn't have to do online banking. There was no online banking.
No.
You called in, or you wrote a check to the mail office and sent it in.
We still had checks,
whatever it was, and it just slowly became this thing where, okay, then you made an email just to have an email. You had a desktop Dell computer with an email account, and you really didn't know what it was for. You just kind of had it. And then now it's like at a point where it's like you work 6 days a week, time goes by, and now it's like everything requires an email and a password, and you made 10 different passwords for the past 15 years. It's like, who could remember that?
And the opposite side of that, Cole, is your grandfather was a computer dude, man. He was into it heavy, and he was a front runner from it, taught himself, and he became very efficient at it, and it was pretty impressive. But that shit didn't interest me. I didn't have time to fool around, and there's a virus, you got to go buy this, I don't have time for this, I've got to work. I'll just write down on paper. Pen and paper still work, and but it's getting to the point now to where pen and paper don't work. Checkbooks, we've got a checkbook no more. Everything's digital, and it's becoming it's closing in quicker by the day, right? And if we don't begin to attack some of these small chores like what you set up for me tonight, this is basic shit for the guy 2 doors down. He's done this his whole life because he's been, he started way earlier than me. I'm late in the game, and it wasn't that I was proud to be computer illiterate. It was more I didn't have the time to teach myself, and I didn't have no one around. Your mom's pretty okay at it, I guess. She could fuck some shit up in a hurry, that's for sure. But she has to do it for her job, so she's forced to do it. And but they got it all laid out. Certain programs for them to follow where you can't really go outside the lines. And that's helpful. But I took that computer class that time in adult ed in Brentwood. And I bought the book. The book cost $100, and they wanted me to take this job, right? It was a promotion, but I had to know how to do this Windows fucking whatever, and you had to be proficient at it, right? And I was like, Windows. Okay. So I signed up for this.
I could do this fucking. I could drive a fucking 80,000-pound vehicle on the road. What the fuck's Windows? Sure. Yeah. It gets worse. $100. Cool. My CDL was 2,000. No problem.
It gets worse, right? So I signed up for this shit, and everybody's in there, and this class, I had been there for 3 weeks, and I went over and I asked the teacher for some help, right? And I go,
just drinking beer the whole time and chewing fucking Copenhagen, not paying attention to shit.
I'm not too sure what's bigger, a gigabyte or a terahertz or whatever, right? And it started out at the smallest one.
Megabyte.
It started whatever the smallest one. I can't even remember now.
You got kilobytes. It goes kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes.
Well, whatever. Yeah, it started at the very first one. It's like reading a ruler to most people, right?
Yeah.
But I went up there and I asked her about it, and she goes, "Oh gosh, Bo, you're still on chapter 1?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Where's everybody else?" And she goes, "They're on chapter 7." I couldn't get past the gigahertz, dude, and that was such a gut punch because I was really trying to grasp it, but they said you had to learn all this stuff to actually accomplish something on a computer, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna start here, and holy shit, I closed the book, I left it on the lady's desk, I said, I think you guys are better off without me, and she goes, oh no, don't quit. She goes, take this book back. You can get your money. And I said, okay.
No, so seriously, I'm good.
Right. I think I still got that book somewhere in the other room. I didn't do shit with it. So, anyways, I have made attempts. I was younger. I had more ambition back then. I think once you get a certain age, you just kind of plateau out and you just want to, shoot for the golden 85 and live your life taking care of the grandkids and whatnot. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I've accepted that. And, I'm not looking to move up. I'm not looking for a promotion. I like what I do. And, aside from the shit that comes with it, is always a downer. Every job's got it, right? But, so for that matter, I'm kind of on the downhill of my career, right? But, as you were talking about, hey, what would you tell somebody at 17 or 18, looking at, well, how are they raised? What are they into? What time is it? Is there computers involved? Were was your dad a computer guy? What do your parents do? Because chances are you're gonna carry down that gene of what they do, or the
what were you born into?
Power. Yeah, I mean, if your dad was an electronic freak, you're probably going to take to it pretty easy because you know what time it is just from being around him. You know what I mean? If your dad's,
if you're born on a farm, probably hauling fucking hay bales.
Yeah, you're busting bolts on a truck out front. You're going to know how to wrench on cars. So it just kind of depends on their environment. So, that's what I look at. I look at well, what was your dad doing, or what's your dad do for a living? What's your mom doing for a living? I don't know, something along those lines to get a profile going for that kid to say, hey, did your dad teach you? Maybe they don't have a dad. I don't know, but you better figure it out because life's coming. And if you don't get your shit together and get your ass moving, you're going to be on drugs laying in the street, and you can't have that. Right. And
you've been telling me that, Dad, since fucking shit. I was fucking old enough to fucking grab a wrench, and I still fucking am unsure about grabbing a wrench. Not at this point. I'm pretty good, but you've always instilled these things into me, where I noticed a lot of my friends didn't have that, and that's fine. It's totally cool. But, I think you did a great job exposing me to a lot of the real world situations. Hey, you better figure it out, dude, and get after it, But like you're saying, hey, sometimes it's hard to figure it out, and just by trying though, you'll figure it out along the line. But get up and put your work boots on and go out there and make it happen and figure it out along the way, And, I think, especially this day and age, a lot of it's sugar coated, and it's okay. We'll hold your hand, and we'll fucking do this. And
well, your mother used to get mad at me. She goes, "Go get Cole and have him help you." And I'm like, I ain't got all fucking day to crowbar that fucker out of his bed and pry the fucking Xbox controller from his hands. I ain't doing it. Hey, dude, you want to give me a hand? Yeah, hold on. Let me finish this game. Fuck, I'd be done with the project by the time you came out. Those games that go on for 3-hour marathons. And I thought, well, and she, mom would get mad at me, and I probably should have did it different, but I had limited time. You see what 6 days a week smashes you.
Yes.
Everybody suffers. Father and son suffer.
Sacrificing it. Hey, son, I ain't got time to. I got shit to do. I got work on Monday, dude. I ain't got time to sit here and teach you the basics. I could teach you. You taught me the basics, that's for sure, Dad. But when it comes to maybe a weekend or a weekend on a July back in 2012, hey, I ain't got time for this. I got fucking work tomorrow, And
that's the way it is, and you have to be able to make that decision on the fly in the moment. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. You know what I mean? So. If I could go back and do it again, sure, I could have did things better, but that's just what you got to do. I knew kids, Cole, that never did a fucking thing at home. Nothing. These kids didn't have chores to do. They didn't do shit. And they're completely successful people today, very successful, a couple of them, So it's not always about forcing that shit on a young kid. Certain times my dad would... I think over push that shit, and it gets to a point with a kid where he don't want to hear the shit or he don't want to do the shit, and it makes it miserable for the father and the son, and it causes a rift between them. You know what I mean? So I think I took the opposite approach. I'd present it to you. If you weren't in it, I gotta get moving. You're gonna have to figure it out. And mom, made you figure it out. She said, hey, this is you're on your own, dude. You ain't coming back here. You got to go figure your shit out.
Yeah. And I think for me personally was, you did allow that. Right. And
right.
Sometimes I think about it and I'm like, hey, I kind of wish, my dad was a little bit more of a fucking hard ass on me and told me, hey, dude, grab the fucking wrench and fucking get the fuck out here, and you did that, but not all the time. And I think it just took me longer than what it took for you at your age, right? Maybe you were 15 grabbing a wrench. I'm 21 grabbing a wrench,
Right.
But I did come around. I had, I not that I did come around, but got to a point where, cool, now I'm interested in this shit. Now I want to do this shit. And you're like, cool, dude, here's how you do it, dude. This is what you do. Hey, dude, go get the job down here. They're hiring. Go down there, walk in there, tell them you're the guy for the job. Cool. I went down there and told this people I'm the guy for the job. I got the job and I got experience, and it led to a lot of other things. So like it did take longer than maybe what it used to take back in the day, maybe, I think. But you did give me a lot of space, and I think that did help in a lot of ways, and I think it also did hinder me in some ways, but also it still kept me up with the times in the present and what it used to be back in the day. I feel like back in the day, the dad was like, hey, do this or get the fuck out of here, and you're like, hey, I'm not doing that with my son. Hey, son, you want to do this? Cool, dude, I'm doing this, but I eventually did come around. Just think I was a little bit more later to the game than what it used to be. But in today's time, it's like some kids don't even show up to the game now, And so I think I kind of have a nice of both worlds,
Yeah, well, you can look at it from any, when you're looking at it from your perspective at that age, it always looks different from a father's perspective, right? Like, this kid don't want to do shit, motherfucker, get the fuck up, quit playing, Xbox and this and that. The kid's like, oh man, I only got 2 days off. But you know what? I didn't make a big deal about it. But once you guys went to work at In-N-Out, you guys never missed a day. You guys were always there. You guys had more than enough money. I never had to give you guys. I used to tell mom all the time, I go, give the kids $100. She's like, I'm not doing that. I'm thinking, fuck that. I don't think I've ever heard one of them ask me for gas money or anything.
Yeah.
You guys never ask for shit.
And when we were kids, we like, hey, Dad, can I get a couple extra bucks to go to Poncho's and get a soda or something? Yeah, dude, go in my cup holder. Grab some change. There's plenty of change in there. We go in your cup holder. You give us $5 out of your change drawer or whatever it was, and we go down there. But once we started getting jobs, we never bothered you, but you did supply us with what we needed as kids.
No, you guys, that was the best place. If you have a young teenager, have them get a job at In-N-Out. It was the best experience. I love that store. Great people, great experience. It was all around a wonderful experience for me watching you guys show up on time, neat, polite, but kicking ass and just dominating that place. You and your sister dominated that store, and what's cool about that was the place to be, man. Friday and Saturday night, that was the hangout. That was cool to work there. And, it was just, what a cool experience,
I'd rather be at In-N-Out Burger than there'd be a football game going on. I skipped out on the football games because I was making $17 an hour at In-N-Out Burger on a Friday night. Yeah, I was making money, and all the kids would come in and be like, oh, they'd see me in there working and be like, oh, what's up, dude? Yeah, what's up, dude? Yeah, here's some fries, here's some drinks. I'd hook people up and shit. But I was one thing you always taught me, Dad, was you always show up to work, whether you ended up drinking too many beers, whatever this and that was. You show up to work regardless. And if you didn't show up to work, you end up fucking there's consequences for not showing up to work. So I always showed up to work, and
yeah,
at a young age.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Joe, Dad. In-N-Out Burger was that's the only corporate job I've really had. And I've worked there for 3 years, but that was you had to have your pants had to be clean. You had to have a clean cut. Yeah. You couldn't have no facial hair, no tattoos showing. It was super corporate. And after that, though, it was a lot of mom and pop. I worked at Delta Fence. I worked at General Plumbing. I worked all over. Now I'm working at Byron. A lot of mom and pop companies, but I still have that corporate side of me of the In-N-Out Burger that I'm like, hey, this was you're at a young age, at 16 years old, having to show up and have responsibilities at a young age. and super beneficial for the rest of my life. I'll carry some of those experiences for the rest of my life in my workforce, and it was really a great thing.
To work for a corporation, that is a good one to work for because they had good core values and they treated their employees with respect. They called you guys associates. There was all these undercut rules, or I should say these rules baseline that were respectful to. I mean, you guys were young asshole kids in high school, and they called you out on it. Hey, you can't act that way. Hey, you can't talk to. You can't get sassy with the customer. Hey, you can't. Hey, your attitude sucks. People need to hear that shit at that age because this day and age, these kids, you see them, they talk like shit. They're rude, and if you don't have someone, slap you in the back of the head and saying knock it off once in a while, these kids will run amok on that shit, and pretty soon you got a whole city full of, dickhead kids. So,
and the great thing about that job was they paid you well, they paid you for it, and we were getting paid top, cream of the crop. Cream of the crop of the job. If you're a 16-year-old kid, you get a job at In-N-Out Burger, you're getting paid more than anyone in high school is getting paid, unless your dad's in construction, you're working weekends with them,
Happening place too, it's always busy. There's always something going on, you're meeting a girl there, you're meeting a boyfriend there, whatever. It's I just thought it was the greatest experience for you guys, and you guys would stay late and smoke pot in the parking lot and shit. It was like, not real happy about that. Don't get caught, be safe, whatever, it's nothing I didn't do, that's for sure. So, to be down there coming down on you guys for, that was probably later when you guys, were doing that stuff, but it was a good camaraderie for young kids, and it seemed like they had a good establishment, and everybody was respectful. Nobody wanted to get fired. Nobody wanted it. Everybody wanted that job. It was a good job to have. It was, sought after. And so if you had a job there, you were pretty lucky. And, of course, some kids just didn't take it serious, and, it's a high turnover rate. But the fact that they still hire and give a kid an opportunity to make a little extra money in high school, that is the American dream. That's what every kid at my age did. We were pumping gas, working at the golf course, all these jobs that, it was summer work, labor work, stuff like that they would, take on kids in the afternoon after school and let their schedules work around their, work schedule. And it was a great thing. I worked at the golf course. I worked at the gas station up the street from my parents' house, and they were great experiences. We used to do the same shit. We would plug people's tires on Saturday for a 6-pack of beer. We tell the guy to go over to the liquor store across the street and get us a 6-pack of beer, and we'll plug his tire for free. By the time he gets back, it'll be done. And he'd say, "Cool." He'd go there, he'd come back and drink fucking 2 of the beers with us usually, and. It was just people were cool like that back then, and you had to eyeball and judge these guys because sometimes it didn't go so well.
Who's narking?
The owner was friends with everybody in town, so you didn't want the shit getting back to the owner.
Way before flock cameras, you had to fucking use your judgment.
Yeah, but
how to use common sense.
Yeah, the owner, he was pretty rough, dude. I mean, he liked to drink beer, so he didn't hold that shit against you. He'd say, "Hey, knock that shit off," or whatever.
Dude, hey, like you said, it's nothing that he wasn't doing when he was your age, right? It was
or doing it at his age then. He was a beer drinker, man. He didn't discriminate against a good old cold beer. And
yeah,
so
here, grab a coldie, cool. Bud. Doing a great
my
job.
My daddy knew Jim Bob's daddy knew everybody. And. That was a good thing. He didn't take it too serious, and he there was times where he would say, "Hey, I left some beer in the," he'd leave it in the Coke machine because it'd stay cold, and we'd open the Coke machine, there'd be a 6-pack in there, and
yeah,
so was,
dude, that's what America was, dude. That's what it seemed like it was, dude. And now it's like, yeah, everyone's too afraid of getting in trouble and losing their fucking job because gas prices are too high, and if they lose their job, you're losing fucking everything,
I mean, he trusted us. We had the keys to that place. I mean, Jim Bob crashed his car one time. We were drunk driving, and we drove it to the gas station, opened the gas station, put it in there, and tried to fix it on the rack. You know, it had a big hydraulic rack. You lift it up, and yeah, he crashed that fucking car more times than I can remember.
Hey, tell the viewers about U-Haul, Dad.
Oh no, God! You move, you store, you haul. I was at U-Haul. I was.
Tell them about U-Haul.
I was the only one in history to quit U-Haul and get hired back as a manager. My best friend's dad was the vice president of the Bay Area, and yeah, you know, that was just a shitty job. I wasn't interested in that. Don't go to work at U-Haul. I mean, maybe some of those guys, you know, I shouldn't say that. It's an American company that's been around a long time, but yeah, I was just not cut out for that shit. And they they would have you on Saturday. There was people that come in back then, you know, people that didn't have trucks. They would come in, and you would get these, you know. We called them rad labbers because they all worked at Livermore Lab, and they were fucking zapped out. You know, they were you know, computer geeks. They were strange people. You know, they weren't all with it. You know, so they would come in with like a Volvo and want to hook up a trailer because they were going to do yard work and load this thing. You know, load a trailer on the back of their Volvo. You know, and you're thinking, well, what in the fuck is this idiot doing? You know, don't you have a truck? You know, or something? You know, no,
yeah.
They see, you know. Okay, you know, I'd tell them back up to the trailer. It'd be 110 out there on the asphalt, and I'd be sweating Coors Light out of me. And they would have these, you know, hitches on there that they, you know, you could bolt them on if they didn't have a hitch, like on a car. I mean, it was so stupid and dangerous. It was just like, I couldn't believe these people were leaving like this. But some people had hitches, right? And then you had to put these wires, you had to take their tail lights off and put these pigtail, splice into their tail lights, put these little connectors and hook all this shit up. And I'd be like, yeah, I'll do it underneath. I tell them I'd do it underneath. I go, there's a different way you can do it underneath. I got a tester light, right? And I wouldn't hook up shit. I'd take that wiring harness and I'd wrap it around it. And I'd tell the guy, go, left blinker, right blinker, hit your brakes. And I'd slap the back of the trailer. I'd go, you're good. That fucking thing wasn't even hooked up. They didn't know. How are they going to know? You know?
I was going to go out there and check this shit. This guy's dumb enough to come in here to get a trailer for yard work. Fuck it, dude.
I wasn't working when they brought it back because, you know, some of these guys took the shit real serious and they'd be real upset, you know? And I had to
spend 3 hours out there fucking trying to get this dude's shit hooked up.
Yeah. And so they would come back and say, hey, this thing, I don't think they hooked it up. Oh, it must have come unplugged, you know? I mean, I was the master of bullshit. And, I was famous, and then there would be these kids that worked there, and they'd be like, "Hey, you know, you got to do." I go, "No, I got this." I go, "Hey, go over there and get that other truck." You know, I'd shoo them away because I didn't want them, you know, catching on to my
fucking
skin.
up my buzz.
Yeah, it was a mess there, but yeah, they would work you, you know, it was just a bad experience there. I was not cut out for that. You know, I mean, there are people coming in on Saturday and there'd be 45 people standing in line and they had a computer, and I had smoked some pot with my buddy before I went to work, and I thought it was a great idea. Well, it was some of that Oregon bud, right? And it was just wicked shit, right? Well, I got so fucked up, and I looked up from the computer screen, and there was like 35 people on a line, and I wasn't even done typing in the guy's driver's license. He had to take all their information. The people were huffing and puffing. People were leaving and shit. And it was like, you know, believe me, I was not the guy you wanted to get. I would have, if I was in line, I would have beat my ass 100%, you know? And, you know, I couldn't take it, you know? And they had all these, they would call you on the phone, and they would have these people call. And if you didn't answer the phone the proper way, they would call you back and tell you failed the random phone call for, you know, it was like some kind of test,
secret
right?
Spies.
Dude, they had this piece of paper by the phone. You were supposed to read the whole thing off, right? And it was like 20 questions. You had to, you know, I go, yeah, no, close at 6, bye, click, you know. They call back, you didn't read the program. I go, oh, And they'd want your name and shit. And, it's like if you got so many marks, they put you in timeout or something. I don't know. It was so juvenile. I couldn't take it. It's like, I got enough to worry about. Then people would want to come in and get their hitches put on. And we had this big giant drill that you had to drill out the frame and bolt these things on. And they told you will get incentives to, you want to bring all the business you can. Don't turn nobody away. We'll get them over to the Dublin store if we have to.
Right. Customer's always right. Get them in here.
Dude,
get them in the door.
I take that program. The guy came in and goes, I was in here last week. They said I could get a hitch. I go, yeah, no, the drill's broke. We're waiting on a bit. You're going to have to come back next week. He come back next week. This guy was persistent, And I go, yeah, well, we got 2 trucks in there. It's going to be a while. I'll probably have to have your truck. I'd just tell him something outlandish so you go away. I mean, this guy wouldn't
come
let
back
up.
Still.
I was giving business out. I was shooing business out instead of bringing it in, because I didn't want to have to do the work. But I mean, it was like, it was serious shit. You had to jack this thing up and drill into the frame and bolt it all on. I mean, now it's pretty basic, but when you're, 16 years old, it was like, holy shit, I don't know where to begin on this project. I'm going to damage something for sure,
Drill into the fuel fucking tank.
Yeah. So I politely, let my buddy's dad was so upset, and, he got over it though, I believe.
Hopefully. If not, dude's
all his sons work there, but my buddy Dave. Dave goes, I'm not working for this fucking place. You got to be out of your mind. Get that golden watch.
Yeah.
No thanks. But
hey, well, shit, Jam. We're fucking. We're an hour 20 in, dude. You want to call it? Is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I don't. I'm wiped out, Cole. We're going to give you guys a pass this week because we didn't jump on till
9:30.
10 o'clock.
Yeah,
so we had to do some major studio renovations over on this side, and we're tightening up our stuff. We're trying to get better quality, better sound. We're moving in the right direction, but we do have to work quite a bit of hours between the both of us. So this is a podcast that I don't know if it'll keep anybody's attention span. We're not that interesting, but we enjoy doing it, right? And
that's right.
We know that we're working on discipline and continuing this. This was a father-son thing in high school. We put it on the shelf for a couple of years, and then Cole got a big idea to reinvent it. He's into the audio, video game shit. So I'm happy to do it. I'm usually just zoned out on YouTube. So we're slowly getting back into it. I'm going to jump on the research wagon this week. I got a lot of things I want to bring up, and we'll get back to what's trending out there in the world, talk about some different things. But tonight we just decided to keep our discipline and do a bullshit session. So I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And I love my son, and this is great fun for me. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing some of these stories and some of these topics we did cover tonight. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Cole.
That's all. That's all. That hit the head on the nail, Dad. Shit, I think this is my favorite episode yet. I think I enjoyed this a lot, man. I'm happy that we got some shit set up at your end, and every Saturday we stay disciplined. Today we ended up running late over there at Jambo's house, but Saturday we're doing every Saturday. Whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's an hour and 30 minutes, we're just gonna be on here and hit you guys every Sunday. So we hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment down below what you guys want us to cover on some new trending topics, if there's anything you guys want us to cover. And with that being said, we'll call this an episode and see you guys next week.
Like and subscribe.
All right.